Hey guys, so this is a bit of a walkthrough video with Reaper on how to mix and produce kirtan tracks, at least what I'm doing. So I'm currently working with some multi-track files from Shravanam this year in Reaper. So effectively what I have done here is pulled in all the tracks, um, and I'll just walk through pretty much how I've got them set up from the mix and what effects and processing I've done. So first of all, I've pulled in all the tracks and put them in one file. So I've got about 30 different tracks in here. So we can just look at like a specific track, like this one for example, to walk through what I've done. So I've put in all the tracks and then I've created a couple of bus tracks, or bus channels, I should say, which kind of condensed um, some tracks with similar processing. So I've got 4 different vocal channels here, the lead vocals and 3 backups. So I've created a master bus called vocals, and then I have some effects and processing on that applies across all of those ones. Um, and I've also, because mrdanga, for example, has got top end and bottom, then I've also got some bus level processing on that. And then similarly for room mics, they're all kind of going to get treated the same. So I've got my effects set up on that. So basically what I've been doing is I start off with this mixer at the bottom once I drag in all the channels, and then I try and get level set fairly consistently for all the kirtans down here, and then I'll go through each one and kind of tweak some of the levels through the track individually. So for example, I've got harmonium set here at -4 dB, lead vocals at 0 dB, generally not pushing things higher than 0 dB. I'm just kind of like adjusting some things down. So for example, flute I kind of found to be a little bit too loud, so I'll pull that down. Harmonium I found a little bit too loud, I pull that down. But I'm not really doing too many changes across here because every kirtan is just so different that it actually helps to just do the changes within the individual kirtans themselves. So I guess I'll just walk through some of the processing that I've got. So on the vocal master bus, I've basically got an EQ, and I'm using a plug-in FabFilter plug-in here for EQ. It's set to dynamic. I mean, you can kind of play around with these, but I think it just sounds a little bit better. And I've got a compressor which makes it come out a little bit. So I'll just play this track a little bit and then talk through what I'm actually doing with it. Hare Rama, Hare. So what I can do is play what something sounds like. So I've got buttons to mute or solo, either the individual tracks or the whole vocal bus in this instance. So what I can do is solo the vocal bus and see what it sounds like. So if I take off, so basically what I've got here is I've got an EQ, I've got a compressor, and I've got some reverb. That's pretty much it for vocal processing. So if I were to take off all the effects, it sounds like this. Effects off. So obviously it's making it louder, it's giving it reverb. The main thing like giving it some punch is this compressor, which I've using this pump me to the radio preset for the compressor to really like bring the sound out a lot. So that's the vocal bus, and then on harmonium, what I kind of do with a lot of these tracks is use an EQ and then low pass and high pass. So basically the only frequencies coming through are really in the middle. So this is a little bit subtle, but then if you listen to harmonium, all it's really doing is just cutting out some of the bass. You don't hear it so much at that point. Maybe I'll try some different spots. Yeah, so not doing a hell of a lot to harmonium other than just narrowing the frequency that's coming through. With mrdanga, what I have been doing is, so I've been doing individual track processing and then also on the bus. So on the bus, I'm just using a compressor, and this compressor has a big impact in my view, like as in it really brings out the drum. So you hear a pretty big difference in this. This is with the compressor. This is without. With. So yeah, you can hear a big difference in bringing that compressor on. Then with individual tracks, so with the top end, I'm taking out all these frequencies that I don't need. And similarly with the bottom end, I'm taking out a little bit of top end. You don't want to take out all the top from the bottom end because yeah, you actually need that for the closed hits. It sounds much better. Another thing that I do a lot, not necessarily on this track, but on a lot of them, because I've got this bypassed at the moment, but I often will tune the mrdanga down. So if we, for example, listen to this, what we can do is, if sometimes you have a mrdanga that the low end is too high, because it wasn't tuned correctly, you can use this particular, I'm going to just open it from here. Yeah, you can use this rear pitch plug-in, turn that on, and just pretty much just pull the bass level, the pitch of the bass side down. So this is lower. So in this particular example, I think the drum's actually tuned correctly, so I don't need to use that. But there's a lot of instances in this where I'll listen to the mrdanga on every track. This is actually an example. This is an example where it needed it, so I've got it on. So if I take that off, that mrdanga is too high. So basically, and the issue with that, I mean, is that it's not actually going to carry through on the mix very well. So if I yeah, so having that that lower bass really like brings it up a notch. Let's go back to the one that I was working on here. So that's mrdanga. Flute, I'm not doing a hell of a lot, just a bit of EQ narrowing, a little bit of compression. That's about it. Now bass, similar. Just most of the tracks I'm just using compression and some EQ. The bass, I'm kind of narrowing the range. What I kind of find with this bass, it actually sounds a lot warmer and cleaner. You kind of get this like some sort of like buzzing, hissing frequencies outside of this narrow bass range. And I just find in the overall mix, you get a lot cleaner if you just narrow out the bass range. Now, there's one thing that I'm doing here. So with the compression on uh, the compression on the bass track is that it's side chaining against the mrdanga. So if I click on this, it's getting see, it's receiving from track 9 mrdanga bottom. So basically this is setting up what it's doing in a nutshell is that when the mrdanga bottom end comes through, because it's side chaining, it reduces the level of the bass. And the reason for doing that is to just clear out space, because the bass guitar and the bottom end of the mrdanga occupy the same frequencies, so that it kind of gets a bit muddy. But if you side chain the two together, then it drops it. So you kind of visually see what's happening, like if I just solo these two. So these little spikes that you see here is that's basically when a bottom end mrdanga hit comes through, the level of the bass guitar is dropping down. So that's one side chain that I've got set up. The other one is on the room mic bus. You've got another side chain compression going on here. This side chain is against the lead vocal. So what's happening here? What's happening on this one is a bit subtle in that particular instance, but I might be able to find some other better examples here. Yeah. So what you're seeing is happening is when the lead singer is singing, we want the level of the room mics to be reduced. So that's how that compressor is working. It's basically just it's just cutting out the sound of the room mics to an extent when the lead singer is singing. Again, I haven't got the external level coming in super like high, so it's a bit of a subtle effect, but that's working. And also what you notice on some of these EQs that I'm using is they're like really narrow, the frequency, and if you listen to the room mics without this EQ, they actually sound a lot better than with the EQ. And so I'll kind of give you the example of that. Like, let's listen with and without. This is with this heavy EQ. And without. So as you can see, like I'm kind of killing the room mic sound with this full-on EQ pattern, but the reality is that in this area here you get a lot of cartel sound coming through, and in this area here you've got a lot of like bass guitar, bass drum, and all of that kind of stuff. So in actually narrowing the EQ, all I want out of these room mics is the audience response. And even though individually soloed, the room mics don't sound good, in the context of the full mix, now you might not necessarily hear a difference in that when you've got all the tracks going at once, but I certainly think when you listen to it a lot, it does kind of make a difference. And you're always looking, when you've got this many tracks going, you're really trying to clean it up as much as possible. The last thing I probably want to just on in this regard is a bit of automation. So what is happening here is I've got the lead vocal channel, and sometimes you'll find that the lead singer sings over the response, and the issue with that is that if you turn the lead vocal down so that you can hear the crowd chanting, then they're not going to be singing loud enough during their lead part. So what I've kind of done with this automation is to reduce the lead singer's mic level during the response. It's a bit manual, as you can see. It takes a bit of time to do this, but once you get into the hang of it, it can happen pretty quickly. So that's a good level during that part, but then so if I put this level back to what it originally was, you can barely hear the crowd response. So it's actually necessary. Like, it's probably good lead singing vocal technique to not sing over the chorus, but or over the response, I should say. But anyway, it is what it is. So I've kind of, in some of the kirtans, has gone through and chopped out the lead singer. In this one, I've done it purely for the lead vocals, but in other instances, like for example this one, I've done it on the bus. So I'm actually just chopping out all the vocal mics on the response. And I think that sounds a lot better. Like if I put this back to where it was, you know, it's basically what you've got here is like 3 different people singing into microphones, which is great, but in terms of hearing the rest of the room response, you're pretty much not going to hear anything. So that's why I'm kind of reducing levels where the response is coming through. The last thing is probably just panning. I'm not really doing a hell of a lot in terms of panning, except for some of the room mics, hard right, hard left, flute a little bit on the left, harmonium I've got 20% on the right. So with the panning, I'm kind of just moving a few things around, like some of the backup vocal mics, not just keeping everything centered. And I think the thinking on that is to just create some space for the vocals in the center and put some of the instruments and the crowd responses on either side of the stereo field. Yeah, so that's that. And then finally, I've got some effects on the master channel. I think what a lot of people do is like render these tracks and then pull them into a new instance of the DAW, like Reaper in this instance, and then master it. But I'm kind of too lazy to do that, and there's just too many tracks and too much material. So I'm kind of just doing some mastering processing on the master bus. So this will just pretty much apply to everything in one hit. And a bit of saturation, very simple EQ just to cut out like very, very top end, very, very bottom end, and a bit of compress. Actually, this compressor makes a big difference. Like, so this, yeah, again, I just go through various presets and find stuff that sounds musical and good. I use a limiter at -0.5. It's not engaging there, but like when the kirtan really gets cranky, you can certainly see the limiter doing its job there. Yeah, that's probably all I'm really going to do. And then once I've got the track how I like it, then you can pretty much either render them individually. I've got a also use normalizing, which is what you want to do to get the overall volume level to a specific um, loudness unit, or LUFS, loudness unit full scale. And for Spotify and those streaming services, it's supposed to be -14. So I just do that so that it's going to be at the correct loudness level for that. And then also put a further limiter on, because even though I've got limiter on the master track, it's then being normalized to that level. So you want to make sure that you're also not getting clipping coming through there. And that's pretty much it. In Reaper, you can do a region render, region matrix. So you can basically just render, set up all your tracks, and then render them all in one hit. So anyway, I'll go through that. But yeah, that's basically the Reaper tutorial on Kirtan mixing.